That was a very long
I'm so
button
ready
push.
for psychology of a coach's tweets episode today.
Oh my gosh, is the sun starting
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs of the Club, your University of Idaho affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined by co-host and producer Redacted. It's the Martin and Brian show in honor of the SAC with a silent K state news of Brennan Marion bailing the day after signing day to go to Colorado. We decided to present you guys with a JV team. So, Martin, how's it going?
It's going good. It's good to be back on after being off for the couple of weeks, but it's nice to be back.
It is nice to be back. And this is going to be kind of a different episode. We kind of have, hey, off season time, right? So off football season time. So obviously, like the rhythm, what we talk about, the rhythm of how often we record changes. We have some football news to catch up on because it's signing day, and as well as like coaching updates. And Martin's going to give a women's basketball update. I'm going to give a men's basketball update. And you guys know how this works. Like, hey, football is always king all year. So if there's football news to talk about, we're going to talk about it. But both the men's and women's basketball teams, there's stories that I'm having fun following the season. So before we get into Around the Bar and talk about the football team, Martin, we have to talk about who the hell brings us around the bar, and that's Hughes River Expeditions. If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976 and are ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway, and check out special trips like the one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. So grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now, 406-540-4450, or check them out at hughesriver.com. Signing day, Martin. This is, now back in the day, you and Patty used to do a shit ton of videos for signing day. Not to put you on the spot, but it's actually like a gigantic amount of production work. So I want to talk about signing day as a whole. We're going to kind of slow walk talking about the different signees. I just think that's probably the easiest way to do is to highlight a few each week. And that's how we get through the 19 signees. But the first thing about this signing day, man, we all know the big thing that when Thomas Ford signed on as Idaho's head coach, everyone knew the single word that everyone had attached to the name Thomas Ford from his time in Idaho was recruitment. Ford's a recruiter. It's hard to recruit when you have a short cycle your first year in. And we know good Big Sky teams are not won the following year by freshman signees. And we know, as Idaho Real Estate said just before the show started, we're not going to get too high on the team before they step on the field and prove it, and then signing day happens. Look, we know some of the guys we talk about, we're not going to talk about again. But that doesn't mean there aren't some big names that are on this roster that will not contribute next year. We know that Idaho has 19 seniors who graduated from this season. So far, the Vandals have 4 guys who have declared for the transfer portal. That would be backup quarterbacks Rocco Koch, Nick Josephek, backup running back Marki McKinnon, and preferred walk-on wide receiver Davis Fry. We know undoubtedly there will be other guys who may already be in the portal or guys who are on the fence. Actually, in the spokesman review, head coach Thomas Ford was quoted as saying safety Matt Irwin and edge Matthias McLean are on the fence about hitting the portal. Now, Matthias McLean would be the first hit, Martin, that to transfer away from Idaho that I think Vandal fans are going to say like, oh God, that's a dude we got to replace. All the others are either like our depth pieces where we're happy for their time as Vandals, but like hey, no put down to Davis Fry or Nick Josephek or Rocco Koch had some moments, but those guys, no one on paper right now is going to say those guys are going to dictate the 2026 season. We wish them the best of luck, but Idaho's also going to have to get some impact transfers later. But we're not here to talk about the impact transfers later. We're here to talk about the number 1 in the Big Sky recruiting class that Thomas Ford put together in his first full recruitment cycle. We're here to talk about, well, it's number 2 in the FCS as of today, but with the news about Brendan Marion, I bet in about 5 minutes, Idaho's class in the 24/7 rankings is going to hop up to number 1 in the entire FCS. A couple cliff notes for Thomas Ford's class: 19 signees, 17 3-stars. And look, just because a guy has stars, Martin, we know that doesn't mean they're going to capitalize. But if you're getting stars, it means you're probably getting some guys with raw athleticism, at least a good amount of those signees. So like, hey, we know stars are not necessarily destiny. Montana State for years have been able to get impact players out of the state of Montana with no stars because they're guys who don't go to camps. But Thomas Ford is connected to the world of camps, and it's not like it's negative to have guys who go to camps where we actually get to see them produce. We get to see their athleticism. So I think it's worth getting excited. You can throw that on screen if you want now, Martin. So before we hit like a couple impact guys who I think could easily be impact guys, first thing to know about these 19 signees, again, 17 of whom are 3-star guys. The breakdown by position group: 2 quarterbacks signed, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, so 3 total pass catchers, you could say, 4 on the O-line, 2 D linemen, 4 linebackers, 2 corners, 1 safety, and then 1 guy who's listed as an athlete. So Martin, with all that background of, on paper, absolutely incredibly successful class. On paper, if you are a person who's anxious about Idaho finishing 4-8, how many commits did Idaho lose finishing 4-8? 0. Thomas Ford kept every single guy who signed with the program. How many guys did Idaho lose when Thomas Ford fired Matt Linehan at the end of the season? 0. So things are going well in the Vandal offseason. We'll talk about some coaching stuff later. But Martin, talking about recruits specifically, I guess the first place I have my head, and I bet people have their head right now, is we know that you're not going to win the Big Sky with an army of freshmen, but there are absolutely positions where we have seen freshmen come in and contribute right away over the last 3-4 years. So of the signees that pop out to you, Martin, as potentially impact guys in 2026, who's drawing your eye?
I'll take the obvious one for. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and go obvious first. Go Kenny Golson, just because the offers stand out to me. Just one, because you don't normally get somebody that has those Power 5 offers to come to Idaho. I know Ford has said I know Ford has said that like their relationships matter, and I definitely do believe that with someone like him. It matters. I kind of would hope that maybe he can have kind of the Tony Trees, if you will, kind of freshman look and just kind of start hit the ground running and make an impact right away and kind of take the load off, kind of be able to fill some of the void that is going to be left by Eli and Nate leaving.
Well, yeah, and until not only did Idaho lose Eli Cummings and Nate Thomas to graduation, the other loss was Art Williams to injury, where until Art Williams is back, my assumption is Art Williams is not back. And the first thing I want to bring up about our man Kenny Golston is, in the Spokesman review, Thomas Ford described Golston as an every down back. Golston's size as a freshman, a true freshman, 6 foot, 216 pounds. That would have put him as, well, that puts him as like the biggest running back who, if he was on the roster last year, the only guy bigger than him would be Hayden Kinchlow, who essentially plays fullback. That size puts him as thicker than, guys like Art Williams or Eli Cummings, and also Art Williams. The other thing that is going to pop out too, when you talked about the offers for Kenny Golston, the offers that this guy had were Indiana, Missouri, North Texas, who is very good this year, Oregon, some people have heard of that school, Oregon State, Tulsa, UNLV, UTSA, and Washington State. Also of note, you already brought up with Anthony Woods and his time at Idaho. He started as a true freshman as well. Running back is a position guys can start. You can see an impact guys as a true freshman. The running back room, until Art Williams is back, which again, because of his injury, until he's back, he's not. That is essentially an empty room looking for some guys who can contribute. So for no question, Thomas Ford is probably looking to add a couple bodies too. And in the transfer portal, when I say bodies, I mean experience to mix with, the youth of Kenny Golston. But the Kenny Golston is one of the described gems of this recruitment class, where it's kind of flooring that a guy like him committed to Idaho. So no, I think you're 100% right. Pencil Kenny Golston in. Well, I mean, until further notice, he would have to be the brain dead number one running back at the school, because there's only like 2 on the roster otherwise. But he is a name I think we're gonna like I don't know when he gets on campus, whether that's in the spring or fall. Some guys are able to enroll early, some are not. I don't know his status, but the second that he's able to be taking part in practice, I know that's a guy who we're all going to be looking at as, okay, is this guy starting or what? There's some other positions that I think is worth paying attention to as guys who can start. And the position I want to talk about is, look, we know you can contribute as a wide receiver, tight end, like as a pass catcher, right? Idaho has actually had quite a bit of success in the Jason Eck and Thomas Ford era of freshmen or underclassmen, defensive backs and safeties playing and very often transferring after they do well. For example, like, hey, Caleb Ricks, true freshman, he was the top corner on the team this past season. No news on if that guy's going to transfer out, but like if he doesn't transfer out, I'm floored. But another position group where you can't make the entire group be underclassmen, but you can have a freshman or a precocious freshman, let's say, start on the offensive line. And there is absolutely a candidate the second he steps on the field at Idaho to maybe fill in on the O-line. That's Kingston Kirchhoff. 6'6", 265-pound freshman from Tacoma, Washington. He was the highest rated signee for Idaho, 3 stars as well. But his offers include Arizona State, Cal, Central Michigan, Michigan State, Montana State, Nevada, Oregon State, San Jose State, and Washington State, which is to say, again, kind of flooring that Idaho was able to snab Kirchhoff at all. But he's a guy for sure. We know that Nate Azzopardi's graduating, so there is going to be at least one theoretical starting spot on that O-line. We have no news on O-line guys transferring out. The fingers crossed Idaho's able to keep that line together because it's been making some developmental steps every single year. Now, Martin, I think it's safe to call them baby steps, right? The last year, the O-line,
Oh, yeah.
I thought last year Idaho's O-line was the best we've seen. Honestly, I'm just talking the Eck time to now. But at the same time, like, hey, no one's going to confuse Idaho's O-line last season with Montana State. They went from the O-line was a relative weakness in X time to the O-line was not a relative weakness, but it's not like elite FCS wise.
Oh no, not at all. It's
but-
it's gotten better,
which is not
rest.
a put down. It's that as guys are getting older, they're getting better each year. So we want those underclassmen, the returning upperclassmen on the O-line. We want them back for that extra year development because they've been getting better and better and better. But a guy like Kingston Kirchhoff, I mean, we've seen freshmen start on the Idaho O-line. Just look at, talking about. I
know Leighton Vining started as a true freshman.
And
I believe Charlie Vleem did too.
Vleem, who's the dude who transferred to Illinois? I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. He had a brother. Aiden Knappich. Yeah, he started as a freshman too. His brother Nathan would have played, or Nate Knappich would have played significantly as a sophomore had he not transferred to Illinois too. So he's a guy that I'm looking to pay attention to. Is he going to work his way on? Martin, one, do you want to add anything to Kirchhoff? And after that, is there any other O-line player you want to talk? Or sorry, is there any other early signee that you want to highlight?
Not really anybody else. I mean, like they just got a lot. Like they refilled the offensive line tool. They got 4 guys that just going to be able to hopefully contribute hopefully soon. And obviously, hopefully maybe redshirt, but they have a lot. They're nothing to worry about there. I think he's someone to look. He is probably someone to look out for. Kirchhoff is. Sorry, wow, I am words hard today.
That's okay, dude. We're going to talk about more. We're going to talk a little bit about each guy in the next couple of weeks also, so we can do stuff like throw tape periodically. Hitting the comment section. Nick Weber, a little voice in the back of my head keeps mentioning top 5 Portland State strong recruiting classes in recent history. Now, Nick, that is fair. That is why I prefaced winning signing day doesn't guarantee you're going to take a step up, but it is absolutely nothing but good news that Idaho was able to sign the type of guys they could and keep the type of guys that Idaho did. Once you sign, it's about development. We already know the game day stuff and the prep work that matters all throughout the season. We know not to completely lose our shit over a signing class, because the reason we highlighted 2 people, Nick, is because most of these guys aren't going to contribute next year. Most of these guys aren't going to be what pushes Idaho a step up in the coming season. But I bet there's not 0 of them who are starters or contributing next year. Otherwise, that could be a problem for Idaho. But we just highlighted 2 guys who it'd be flooring if they don't get significant run next year, in particularly Golston. Jason Mayer saying, show me the beef. Patty saying, Lucas Moore is a dude. We will get to talk, or Luca Moore is a dude. We'll get to talking Luca Moore eventually. Ross Warren, definitely a starting LB in the group, probably DL, DB, and safety as well. Nick Weber, I'm excited for 2 tall corners. Crewhead, 6'10", 216. Golston will be better than anyone we have. Co-signed, but there's also only 1 guy to compare with right now. Ross Warren, Landon Schramm is going to compete for a starting role at LB. Peter Soeth, the class is a good foundation to build upon. There are several who can impact the team next year. Patty Frakes joining us from Cheney. We had two true freshmen play half the snaps at RB this year in Cheney. And Crewhead co-signing, we need portal wide receivers and DL. Oh, of course. And I expect what we're going to be looking at in portal targets from Thomas Ford. Quarterback appears completely safe. All indications are Joshua Wood is returning. We know that they're probably going to look for some upperclassmen to help contribute at running back as well. We know that wide receiver was a relative weakness of the team, so we expect some guys to portal out eventually, and we need some impact guys to transfer in. I also expect D-line would be a place to look for some plug-and-play players as well. But whatever. Also, full disclosure, we need a guy who can return kicks and punts. That's just what Idaho had last year, not close to good enough. We'll get to the other signees in different episodes. But the other thing I wanted to update you guys on is Thomas Ford Jr. was quoted in the Spokesman Review as saying the OC position, the search is ongoing, and he has narrowed it down to 2 candidates. And I'm stoked about that. Likely means we're probably going to hear an announcement prior to Christmas. My understanding is the search has been pretty exhaustive with multiple steps of interviews, which is to say it really sounds like Thomas Ford knows nailing the OC hire is a really big deal. The Matt Linehan gamble obviously did not pay off, and it's pretty clear that at the OC position, Idaho probably needs a guy with FCS experience, or at least some level of D1, D2 experience calling plays. I would expect Ford is going to be targeting guys who have FCS or Big Sky experience at the OC level. Whenever we have an announcement, obviously we're going to update you on that, but that search is ongoing. But, thing I want to point to is, one, again, it did not impact signing. And 2, I think one of the things I talked about periodically on the show is, if Idaho finishes 6-6, the concern is, and I mean this exact same team, like, hey, a couple plays go differently, and instead of 4-8, Idaho sitting at 6-6. Big concern for me would be, does Ford look at the staff and say, hey, 6-6, you know what, just a little bit of improvement, we're in the playoffs, let's run everything back. 4-8, I think that you can't really get around a 4-8 season without being confronted with the fact that some stuff has to change. And I just want to say, everything Idaho's been doing this offseason appears to be a step in the right direction. The coaches who were let go, D-line and running back, nothing against Finau or Dunbar, but those were 2, relatively speaking, underperforming groups. We exhaustively have talked about how Linehan was not up to task as an OC, and firing Matt Linehan, or mutually parting ways, as some might say, Martin. That was definitely the right call. But that also means the second year for Ford, getting this hire right is a big deal. I think it's nothing but good news that at this point, it looks like Ford took the lessons from a 4-8 team you would want him to take, which is things got to change, and we got to get some experience at the, one of your top assistant coaching positions. Court Dennison was far more stable overall in his role at DC. Yeah, like, hey, dude, we all hate the 3-man rush on third down. I will co-sign that 1,000 times out of 1,000, but the defense was overwhelmingly not what let Idaho down throughout most of 2025. Clearly, it was in most of the games Idaho lost close. The issue was the offense not holding up their end of the deal. So Ford looks like he's moving to address that for sure. We know they're going to have to address it with talent too. We've already talked about how running back, we know who at least one of the contributors probably is. We're going to hear back a little bit about, transfers in other positions too. Crewhead 76 saying, my only pushback on the DL was the shitty scheme, but Ford obviously had his reasons. I trust him so far. Look, I mean, Crewhead, I think that was one of the big deals for sure. And Idaho did add better pass rush by the end of the season. But I guess the pushback is, Dennison is going to have the scheme he wants to have, and he needs to recruit guys for that scheme. So I think you just need something different at DL. And if they felt like Finau wasn't good enough, best of luck to Finau. I will say, with how all of the coaches handled their demotion on social media, they all essentially co-signed Ford dismissing them from the program. So I'm okay with that. So anyway, that's our football news. The big things we're looking for now are who the guys will be portaling into the program, and of course, guys who leave, and then finishing up the coaching search. I would be shocked if those positions are not all filled prior to Christmas. Martin, before we shift to talking women's basketball, anything you want to add to the football talk?
Not really. I mean, you kind of hit the nail. You said stuff. and I trust you with it. It's like I'm looking forward to whoever they announce and getting back on the right track with football.
Yeah, thank you, Nick Weber, for reminding us about that right track. So, all right, Martin, you've got a women's basketball update, but before we get to the women's basketball update, it's Christmas time. Christmas is right around the corner, dude, which also means our Christmas break. But if you have not purchased anything from vandalgear.com, don't know what's wrong with you. But if you're looking for Christmas gifts for the Vandal in your life, get to vandalgear.com right away. Oh shit, we have a new shirt up there. I had not seen that yet. So we have
So this one was made for Education Day. They had a lot of the event staff had them wearing at the games on yesterday, and I think it was like a third or fourth grader at one of the local elementary schools designed this shirt, and now it's a shirt design on vandalgear.com.
Which, if you're watching, you can see that Martin's got it up. But in addition to the Education Day shirt, which I like, you've got the Fighting Taters, you got the ugly Christmas sweater, you've got the Kibby Dome game day, you've got accessories, you got rocks glasses, pint glasses, bottles. If you're Dallas, you got the goddamn fanny pack. Anyway, there's a ton of stuff. If you have not bought the Vandal in your life, something from vandalgear.com, do it right now. But in addition to what they do with Idaho apparel, if you are a business, an org, a school, and you want to have merch to sell, to have, or to give away, get a hold of Jeff. The company name is Pacific Custom Sportswear. They've been operating out of Spokane for over 25 years. They can work with you to design a logo or just use your own logo. And like I already covered with all the Vandal stuff, yeah, they can put your logo on essentially anything you want. Clothes, like shirt, hoodie, sweatshirt, socks, rocks, glasses, fanny packs, whatever. There's Dallas in the comments section. Fanny pack, baby. Yeah, sure. Anyway, any Vandals, any stuff you want to put your logo on, you can do it. Get a hold of Jeff at Pacific Custom Sportswear. The website is vandalgear.com. Martin, it has been a while for both of us since we've been able to do updates on men's and women's basketball. And Martin, did not notice your Chiron. I am down 153.9 pounds. I was having trouble seeing you. So I understand why. The women's team has been kicking ass this year, Martin. So I'm going to turn it over to you. We both have a few games that we'll catch up on. And just, I know when I go, I'm just going to talk about the general progress and things to watch with for the team. But Martin, it's time to talk about the women's team that is looking pretty goddamn good right now.
They've played a lot of love you too, Dallas. Thank you. It's they like the last update I did. I believe I did it just after the Walla Walla game. I believe so. They've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games since then. Gone 5-1 in the 5-1 in that stretch. By the way, loss might be heavier than a certain quarterback I used to play. They've gone 5-1 in that stretch since then. Lost kind of a heartbreaker / a game they probably should have lost. They shouldn't have lost to Oral Roberts, but that Oral Roberts team. I'm not taking credit for this. I believe it was Jaden Barfus, the Vandal Nation, kind of pointed out like a lot of their losses are to close team, or a lot of their losses are to what most of us would consider like the Power 4, Power 5 basketball conference team. So I wouldn't say take it with a grain of salt. Like, I'm not too worried about it. I'd rather have them learn and grow from this experience now in basketball. But like a lot of they're still playing. They're kind of going back to just the overall last 6 games. They're playing a kind of a high flying, a high scoring offense. The lowest scoring output was 76 against Southern Utah, but they've been scoring 89, 89, 82, 83, and 89 in a loss, which offensively wise, you're not going to lose many games scoring 89, but transition defense was a big issue in the Oral Roberts game, and transition offense was another big issue too. They just could not get a basket. It seemed like it seemed like when they should have slowed down, but didn't. But overall, they've been playing well. They've like a lot of big standouts. I mean, the big name Hope Hasman's been playing well. She's been playing her normal self. She's been playing great. Kiara Gardner's kind of hot and cold time to time with games. It's kind of been a little bit of back and forth with her. Just like sometimes it seems like she's really good. Other times it's like there's times where it doesn't seem like I wouldn't say all there is the right word to use, but it doesn't seem like she kind of beat herself up a little bit, but not too much. I'm guilty of doing that to myself a little bit. Uh, but like the other kind of thing that kind of Nick and Ross are both pointing out right now, the thing I've noticed the most, and this is not like a knock on other past plays, but the thing that stood out to me is having players like Lorena Barbosa and Deborah Dos Santos, having two post players like that you can just rotate in and out quickly and get like having like great rebounding, great just. It is something Idaho hasn't had in a long time. I think probably since Nat Clinker, but that's a different. Those are two different. Deb's probably good at Deb. Nat's kind of closest comparison is probably Deb, but like they play so it's like a different kind of game they both play, but they are both. It has just been a great like they're all saying the depth is amazing. Like they are just playing their style of basketball, something I haven't seen at Idaho in quite a long time.
Well, and Dos Santos is kind of, you can tell she's kind of playing her way back into shape. You know, most recent game against Oral Roberts, that loss, that was the game she saw the floor the longest, 21 minutes. But she has been
like double too today. This was her first game, and she was close in the last couple of games. But today, like you said, the Oral Roberts game was her first meaningful minutes game in a while. She's played the most this whole season.
Yeah, and a couple things I want to kind of highlight with Dos Santos, because when she catches her stride, conditioning wise, she is going to be wrecking the Big Sky. And I bring that up because, like, if you just look at her on the season averages of 11 points and 7 rebounds, it's like, okay, well, like, hey, that's solid, right? Solid contributor. She's averaging 13 minutes a game right now and putting up 11 points. You know, Oral Roberts was her longest stretch playing 21 minutes. Just another thing to pay attention to too is, you know, most last few games, you know, she's been getting into foul trouble relative to not being on the floor too much, but part of that can also be conditioning. But in the three most recent games, like I said, against Oral Roberts, 22 points, 15 rebounds, and 21 minutes. That's some monster stats. And then against Wichita State, 7 points, 10 rebounds, and 17 minutes. Against Colgate in that blowout win, 82-53, 15 points and 9 rebounds in 13 minutes. If she can get to a point of playing like 25, 30 minutes a game, that is going to be she's going to kill a ton of Big Sky teams.
Oh, yeah.
Now, she's got to be able to be on the floor longer. And we know part of why.
Yes, sorry, keep going. Sorry, Brian.
We'll just say part of why she's at Idaho is she did get hurt at San Francisco, right? We know she was kicking ass in the WCC. Yeah, if she doesn't
first team all defense, first team all conference or all defense when she was at in the WCC at San Francisco too. So like she's a good basketball player.
Oh yes, she's good. It's just she's not at Idaho if she doesn't have the injury, which means glad to have her, but she also brings her recovery as well. So, you know, that's watching Dos Santos is something I'm going to be paying attention to throughout the rest of the season. But, you know, another thing you brought it up earlier in the season, you hit on it as well. It's just Barbosa taking a minute as well to get things to, you know, kind of get clicking with Idaho. But if those two come conference season look like they are ready to take steps, and you already talked about the guard play at Idaho has been pretty good, you know, between Hope Hassman and Kyra Gardner, Kyra Gardner, both of whom are averaging, you know, Kyra Gardner's averaging just under 13, Hope Hassman just under 14. Those are your two top scorers from the outside. Yeah. So no, absolutely. I
didn't even mention Anna Pinero, and she's taken huge strides from her freshman year last year. She's been playing. She's probably the most like. If they're gonna press with somebody, she's guaranteed to get at least a steal or two a game. She has made the most improvement, I think, from year one of Marrera to year 2. Yeah,
and I guess Martin, you know, the women play as part of the Big Sky Missouri Valley Challenge. They've got Summit. It's Missouri Valley for football, Summit for basketball. My bad. They're at Denver on Saturday at 11. Then
11 Pacific time, we should add, just to make that clear.
11 Pacific time. Thank you. Then, to close out the out of conference, they're at Cal on December 10th, and then at Utah State December 13th. Home game against D2 Western Oregon, and then come the new year, January 3rd, that's Big Sky Conference season is starting. So, hey, with all that said, Martin, anything else you want to talk about with women's team, or anything else standing out we haven't got to talk about yet?
I think the other thing I mentioned, like Jason has mentioned, I believe that's Andy Kaus is 208 Fish, I believe. Also mentioned like depth. They have most nights they probably have at least like I wouldn't say two Big Sky starting lineups, but like they have at least 8, 9. They could go like 10, 11 deep if they truly needed to in any given game. If there's foul trouble, this team has depth beyond. Like I haven't seen in my time at Idaho, like when I've been a fan since like serious fan since like 2015, 16 ish. So year 10 for me. Wow, I can't believe it's been 10 years now. Like they are playing some really entertaining basketball. Like this is up there with the Splash Sister John Newley years, and kind of takes a lot for me to say that, I think.
Well, the post that we talked about, Dos Santos and Barbosa, their minute per game totals aren't super high, but I think part of that's playing their way into shape, stuff like that. But counting those, if you remove those two who are starter level players working their way in, there are 6 players who are not Dos Santos or Barbosa averaging 20 plus minutes per game. So that's going 8 deep like that is legitimately something not a lot of teams don't have. And then, Sarah Brands is also, she's at 11-ish minutes per game. Now it's pretty normal in the out of conference for your rotations to maybe shrink a little bit. But that's part of what the OOC is for, especially when there's, we have some D1 sub D1 games mixed in there. But I think this women's team is looking pretty goddamn good right now, Martin. So I know it's hard to project what the Big Sky season is going to be, but it feels like you'd have to be a moron to not be penciling Idaho in right now on paper as one of the top 3 or 4 teams to compete for the conference championship come conference season.
It's probably not going to be. I think realistically, it's probably going to be. It's going to be probably I'm going to think probably at least a 2, maybe a surprise 3rd team. But it's going to be between Montana State, Idaho, and then usually there's at least a surprise team in there. There's every year there's someone different. Probably like a Sac State or something else, or Sac State or Montana.
Right. But anyway, so that's our women's update. As the season progresses, we'll probably go back to our, kind of weekly update, of course, when we do the live show, and as needed, go for tub shorts. Martin sometimes does a tub short. I've done a few as well. We got to talk about the men's basketball team as well, Martin. And now they've been, up and down is like both correct and incorrect to describe the men's team. I did a reaction video, to the season opening win at Washington State. Since then, your Vandals sit at 5-3 on the year. Now, 2 of those are sub D1 wins. So Idaho men are 3-3 in Division I play. Big loss early in the season is Christian Gonzalez. You can see him during the games on the sideline. He's got a scooter, got a boot on his foot. No idea about the time he's going to return. And that's a huge loss because, hey, Christian Gonzalez against WSU, he was the first guard off the bench averaging 18 points. If he's your 6th man, that's a pretty goddamn scenario to be in. No idea about a timetable for Gonzalez's return. But until he's gone, he's not. And when you're on a scooter still on the sideline, you're probably a ways away from returning to live action. Since I've recorded, only talking D1 games, Idaho lost 2 relatively close games in the San Diego area at University of San Diego and at UC San Diego. Both those games were theoretically winnable. Against San Diego, freshman Jackson Rasmussen led the way with 23 points. Against UC San Diego, Colton Mitchell led the way with 18. And then in the Vandal Hoops Classic over Thanksgiving, Idaho beats Cal State Northridge 78-64. Biko Johnson had a huge game, led the team 23 points, also led the team with 6 rebounds. Team got their ass kicked in the second half of that Vandal Holiday Hoops Classic against Sam Houston, losing 94-68. Jack Payne led the way with 14 points. And then last night, December 3rd, in their game in the Big Sky Summit Challenge, Idaho murdered North Dakota 90-58. Absolutely an ass kicking from whistle to whistle. And the guy who led Idaho this game, Isaiah Brickner, off the bench, 26 points in 17 minutes. Until and if Christian Gonzalez makes it back, that means we're going to have to get some bench scoring, from the wing. And Brickner was a guy who was an impact player off the bench last season. Early in the year, it looked like he had probably lost his spot, but injuries changed things. So Brickner's had a few solid games. So maybe he's making his case to get a little bit more action. Trevon Blassingame also 12 points, going 5 for 5. So a couple of trends I want to talk about for this men's team is, what's going well? Certainly this team has better post presence, both scoring and rebounding wise. I'm talking senior transfer Brody Robery. He's the starting center. Jackson Rasmussen, freshman. He's an inside out player. He is a guy who I hope can hang out in Idaho for a while. He's averaging 14.8 points, 4 rebounds a game on the conference season. He starts at your 4 position. And then off the bench, Seth Joba is a little bit of a stretch 4. He looks like he's more comfortable shooting threes than he is banging down low. But, against North Dakota, he still picks up 8 rebounds as well. So that Idaho has, they've got some solid players down low. Joba's averaging 7.5 on the season. And Robery, who is a much more traditional back to the basket player, he's averaging just under 9. So I just covered Idaho's getting a lot more overall production down low this season than in any of Pribble's previous seasons. So hey, that's going well. What else is going well is Biko Johnson, as kind of a primary ball handler, guy who can create off the dribble. Now he's not the team's leading scorer, but he's a senior transfer. He has been absolutely something I think this Vandal team has needed. He's averaging just under 10 points a game on the season. So anyway, Biko as a starter, that's been kind of a revelation for this Idaho team. And you just in general, if you talk about the team as a whole, Martin, every single year Pribble's been here, the team looks like a baby step better. And I'd say this team right now they're way more fun than any of the last teams. But as of right now, I would call them a baby step better, but part of that has to do with what is not yet going well. This first thing I want to talk about, not quite going well, is the Idaho's they're getting a lot more out of their posts. They're also getting far less out of their guards, in particular, talking Colton Mitchell. And I talk about Biko Johnson in a good way. I'm going to talk about him in a not good way as well. Biko Johnson and Jack Payne. Those 3 guys, and hey, Jack Payne and Colton Mitchell were preseason first team All Big Sky. Those are guys who were big contributors last season. All 3 of those guys are shooting sub 40%, and generally speaking, I believe it's sub 35% for all 3 of them. So this Idaho team, that they need to get points from the wing. They do need to be able to hit some threes. Their 3 go-to scorers on the wing on the year are really not shooting that well. Now, I don't think that's going to persist the entire season, because we saw Jack Payne and Colton Mitchell for an entire season last year look like they were solid Big Sky wings guards. We know that is going to tick up at some point. And that's why I say, hey, good news, bad news. The good news is Idaho's been competitive in every game and also picked up some D1 wins, including an ass kicking of North Dakota, with those 3 guys on the season not playing nearly as well as we and probably they expect as well. So assuming those guys, they don't even need to take developmental steps from last year. If Mitchell and Payne can contribute offensively like they did last season, that's essentially an additional step this Idaho team can take. Now, I think that this team has the talent to be around the top 4, probably not number 1 in the Big Sky, but I think they could finish 4 or 5 in the Big Sky. They're not going to do that if Johnson, Mitchell, and Payne are all shooting sub 35% on the season. There's just no prayer that's going to happen. But I think there's also no reason to assume that's going to happen as well. The other thing, kind of good news, bad news at the same time, is obviously bad news with Christian Gonzalez out. But it seemed like Idaho with Gonzalez, that first game against WSU, they felt like they had their guard rotation down pretty well. And it feels like losing Gonzalez was a bigger deal than just losing one guy. Because say Gonzalez is a combo guard. He can be your lead guard. He can play off guard. That, first guard off the bench is great to have guys versatile like that. He was recruited to Idaho as a point guard. He mostly plays off ball now, but just keep in mind, the dude has played as a lead guard before. So having a guy who has that ability to be like your nominal point guard, initiate the offense, or, be off ball. And, his primary job is to score when he's in. That's a big deal to lose a guy like that. Colton Mitchell also has weirdly had a ton of foul trouble this year. So Biko Johnson's had to take over as the primary ball handler, probably more than I think Pribble expected. And I think Johnson's been absolutely fine. And there are times where I have to think Mitchell moving off ball might be easier for him. He played off ball when he was at Idaho State. There's some times where his game looks like he would just be more comfortable off ball instead of initiating the offense. Not a put down to the dude. He's, he was preseason All Big Sky as a point guard for a reason. But I just think I wouldn't be shocked if there's still a little bit of in-game reshuffling Pribble does from the guard position. The other thing is, now this is an Idaho team that they're not as bad as they were defensively last year, because they're like one of the worst in the nation defensively last year. But this is with majority of the same guys returning from last season. Obviously, they didn't morph into like a top, Big Sky defensive team. This team's strength is going to be scoring the ball. They're going to largely win games where they're scoring a higher amount. This is just not a team that's going to win games 50 to 45 on the year. So I guess what I'm looking at through the rest of the out of conference season, which really is not that much for the men's team in a way that I care about. On Saturday at noon, Idaho plays at South Dakota State. Picking up a W there, I think, would be a pretty big deal for Idaho. But the rest of your OOC slate includes Notre Dame, which, hey, cool, but like Idaho's going to lose. I don't give a shit. Evergreen, D2, I don't really give a shit. Then December 21st and December 23rd, we got at Cal Poly and at Cal State Bakersfield before Big Sky play starts on January 3rd against Eastern. That's a double header, right, Martin? The men's and women's on Saturday?
No, not anymore. It is Eastern men are playing in Moscow. Idaho women are playing up in Cheney this year.
Okay, thank you.
It's not, and it sucks, but
okay, it sucks. But whatever. Glad we had that. Producing in public fact check. But there's still 3 games that I'm paying closer attention to in the out of conference play. If Idaho can pick up those 3 W's, or at least pick up 2 out of 3, they're going to lose to Notre Dame. They'll beat Evergreen State. This could be, one of the first the first years in a long time Idaho finishes on the right side of 500 if you count the sub D1 games heading into out of conference play. There's absolutely moments when you see this team where you could understand them making a bit of a run where, come end of the year, they could win a few games in the Big Sky Conference tournament. However, when the team is, sometimes it feels like this team, they're either clicking or they're not. One of the things that I know this team's going to shoot threes. I'm not an old school guy who bitches about threes, but I just think this team's stronger offensively when they try to go inside out first. I don't necessarily mean post up. I mean, like create off the dribble as well. When this team is shooting, when their 2 to 3 ratio is closer to 1 to 1, I just think they're a better basketball team. Not long twos, Martin. Thank you. 208 Fish. Not sure why they did away with the doubleheader, especially when both are playing same day. Rob Maher saying, I think Mitchell's been working on defense off season on the Patchen podcast, maybe a little too aggressive. Yeah, whatever. I mean, the Big Sky is a 1 bid league. So the big deal is to iron out your kinks in the out of conference season. There are times where this team looks like they could be good. Now there's also times when things are not clicking and they just look like a barely better version of the team from last season that won a single conference game, but not conference tournament game, but not multiples. You have to say that this team can't have a goal of just winning 1 game, or at least if they're going to win 1 game, they better get a bye in that first round. So 1 win in the conference tournament can't be the goal in year 3 for Pribble. But you also do have the times where, look, the Big Sky, Northern Colorado looks like they're probably pretty easily the number one-ish team. Maybe Montana State, you might say, is closing on number 2. Other than that, this is a very open conference. If Idaho could very easily, assuming we get a little bit better play out of the wings, take a step and be competing for that 3 or 4 spot right away. Now, there's openings for sure. And, like Montana sitting on 3 consecutive home losses. That hasn't happened for them since 2004. But that's your basketball update. Martin, before we one, you've been at some of the men's games. Anything you want to add to what I just covered with the men's team?
Not really. I mean, you kind of do way more in-depth stuff than I would. I just, like you said, they seem like a little better. Fouls, it sometimes seems like there's always somebody on that team that gets in like some sort of foul trouble. It seems like at least once a game. But like, it's just so nice to have like an actually entertaining men's basketball team instead of the thing we've had for like 2 years before this.
Well, here's the thing too with what you're saying is last season the team had no inside presence whatsoever.
Yeah.
So they had to be heavily 3 dependent, and they had they had good shooters, no elite shooters. You just knew a team that 3 heavily dependent, when things are not clicking, it looks ugly. When things are clicking, it's fun. And you can rattle off points fast. This team has significantly more talent at being able to get the ball inside, both in like Biko Johnson off the dribble. One, Colton Mitchell does look physically stronger. He is doing a better job penetrating on the season than last year. And then, a combination of Rasmussen, Robbery, and Joba's not really an inside threat, but the Rasmussen, Robbery, those 2 guys, they are inside threats as well. It's just, when the team gets into lulls, and I think Pribble might say when they're executing not quite as well, they can take, let's say, they can go to a 3 a little bit early. This team is very different when they get 3s off of dribble penetration or off of, kick outs from the post versus 3s early in the shot clock. So that's, again, I'm not a guy who bitches about shooting 3s too much. To me, it's more like the route of getting them. This is a team that absolutely has the talent to beat many teams at their level going inside out first. Last season's team had no prayer of that, which is my way of saying this team this year, when it looks good, they look like they could beat the shit out of last year's team by 15 or 20 points. But we're also talking about a stretch where we're not getting guard play at the level as a whole, not getting guard contribution at the same level we had last year. But there's reason to expect that could be better. If it does get better, this is a dangerous team in the Big Sky. If it doesn't, they're still a little bit better than last year. Martin, last thing we got to get to, picking the Big Sky. We got 3 playoff games to get to. And no, I'm not going to pick the entire playoffs, guys. I don't pay attention to the other schools. I would just be rattling off names. I don't know shit. But Martin, picking the Big Sky, do you want to get your tax out of the way first? Or want to look
let's just rip that Band-Aid now. Let's just get it over with. Dan Jackson's going to avenge the last year's loss against Montana. He's going to avenge all Vandal fans and get that win in Missoula.
To enunciate who we're talking about, that's South Dakota State traveling to was Montana number 3, the number 3 seed Montana for the second round of the playoffs. And South Dakota State, what a goddamn gift of a second round playoff game that is for the Grizz. And what I'm bringing up is South Dakota State through the first 7 weeks of the season looked like they'd be the 2 seed. Quarterback Chase Mason goes down against Murray State. South Dakota State proceeds to lose 4 in a row to North Dakota State, Indiana State, South Dakota, and Illinois State. By the way, a couple of those teams, a few of those teams have made the playoffs. Then they beat North Dakota with their backup, and then in the playoffs, Chase Mason returns. South Dakota State beats the hell out of New Hampshire 41-3, which is to say the South Dakota State team is undefeated with Chase Mason at quarterback. That includes a win at Bozeman to start the season. And I think, look, Montana's a good team. I'm actually going the Jackrabbits. South Dakota State was a completely different team when Chase Mason could play, because they still got a defense there in wherever the fuck South Dakota State is, Brookings. But when Mason was gone, they couldn't move the ball at all. But now he's back. We know this Grizz team, they can score. They're going to put up some points. But I don't think anyone would say Montana defensively. Look, they absolutely have their moments for sure. But I don't think anyone's calling this like a top 10 defense in the nation. So I'm picking South Dakota State, which might be a shock. And man, is there going to be an online meltdown if that takes place? Next game, Martin, Yale. Yale, who picked up a surprise W. The Ivy League looked terrible in week 1 of the playoffs until Yale made a colossal comeback against Youngstown State. And yeah, Yale at Montana State.
Montana State. It was a nice to see Yale have that. Was it a 35 or 28 point comeback for them? Either way, like it was a nice for them to get the comeback, and
it was a few scores. How about that?
Yeah,
it was a few scores.
Yeah, it was a few scores, but Yale, you're not gonna beat Montana State. It should. I don't think it's gonna be close. Montana State wins big.
Yeah, and what was that? What was the Harvard score? I have the FCS website up, which is, of course, a piece of shit. And there it is. Harvard loses to Villanova 52-7. And yeah, Yale was down. Yale was looking awful against Youngstown State. Ended up pulling out a 43 point win. Jesus, man. Yeah. So not going to talk about the rest of the bracket, guys, but in that 3-game losing streak, there were 3 playoff teams 4-game losing streak for South Dakota State. There were 3 playoff teams. My bad. South Dakota made it as well. I'm going to pick Montana State. They look like an absolute juggernaut. They're not going to beat North Dakota State, but Montana State is way too strong on both sides of the ball. Yale, look, they won their Super Bowl winning a first-round playoff game, and it was probably helpful for the Ivies to get that W, because if Yale got their ass kicked the way Harvard got their ass kicked, that meant the Ivy was looking like that should be a 1-bid league, like a Pioneer Conference, just based off how those first 2 games were looking. Maybe that changes next season. I don't know. But it's not going to change week 2. Montana State's going to roll. Final game that we're looking at, Martin, Rhode Island at UC Davis.
I'm going to be a silly goose, and I'm going to go Rhode Island. I'm going to go with the 9 seed over the 8 seed.
Any reason in particular?
No, it's just what the vibes are telling me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Davis. Mostly I think this is the ceiling of UC Davis, is winning this game. I think there's absolutely no prayer. Well, look, whoever wins this game is going to get murdered by North Dakota State in the quarterfinals. But making the quarterfinals is a big deal. So, yeah, I'm going to go Davis. I think Walter Payton nominee Caden Pinnock will be enough. But yeah, and I just always have trouble knowing how to feel about your CCA type of team. So that's a gigantic conference that is very much watered down. I don't think the CCA is on the level of the Big Sky or the Missouri Valley, assuming, the teams show up. In the comment section overall, well, look, Martin with Silly Goose saying Jack's off the Grizz. But a lot of people are picking South Dakota State and agree. Like Tom Kendall says, Chase Mason, huge difference maker for South Dakota State. Got Sam Dane saying such a bracket wrecker at the 14 spot. Well, I mean, that still happens when you lose four games in a row, but you lose your starting quarterback, as Vandals can tell you. I don't know, kind of a big deal, right? Rob Maher, Big Sky wins all 3 games. Big Sky mid-level teams better than most of these other conference playoff teams except Missouri Valley. And no Ron in the comment section. God damn it, Ron. What's going on? Nick Weber says Davis plows the Peter Griffins. I'll take it. Ross Warren, the Ocean State in a surprise. Okay. Jason Mayer, East Coast equals Least Coast. Davis wins. Andy Cass, Davis, too much travel for the Islanders. Captain saying CAA. I'm assuming that was correction. And Sam Dane, if the Grizz win, we could see another Brawl of the Wild. Could be the move. Now, hey, that is obviously what people would be looking forward for the playoffs, and it would probably be good for the FCS to have that happen. But I'm just picking, like Martin said, I'm picking the Jacks to off the Grizz. Martin, before we end up, the last thing I want to say is for fun, we left this last. Sacramento State, the former Big Sky members, finished 7-5 this season, had the previously number 1 rated signing class that there's no way that lasts. Broke today, which, by the way, 12/4, December 4th. The day after early signing period is December 3rd through December 5th. So essentially, December 3rd is when most people announce their signing. That's kind of signing day. Yes, it's a couple days. So the day after signing day, former Sacramento State head coach Brendan Marion inks commitments for a bunch of guys to Sac State, bails the next day to go to Colorado and be the OC for Deion Sanders. And look, like, there's 2 things I want to bring up. One, what an ass Brendan Marion. My God, like one, never mind the ref thing we talked about earlier, pretending there was conspiracy, but signing all those guys and bailing. Yeah, I don't care what anyone says about their career. Obviously, this move was understood before today. Like, Deion Sanders didn't call him 5 minutes ago and be like, "Hey, Marion, what are you doing, man?" Obviously, this was worked out for a while. Signed a bunch of dudes and left. This is why players get to have transfer portal flexibility. And I'm a guy who wants there to be like some middle ground. But if you got coaches who can be jackasses like this because there's so much money that can still cover buyouts, where the buyouts are irrelevant for guys at lower levels to go up to bigger schools because the schools have the money, then the players get the flexibility to leave too. It sucks, but it sucks that that's the world we're in. But if you got jackasses like Brendan Marion who sign classes and bail the next day, there you go, right? But number 2, man, Sacramento State, what a goddamn dumpster fire. Right now, the Hornets have like 4 games inked on their FCS independent schedule for next season. No head coach. The smoke around the program is rumors, let's say, on Twitter. Don't know if they're true or not, obviously, but I'm talking shit on Sac State, so I'm gonna bring it up anyway. That Sac State not making it FBS was a big deal for Marion. I don't know if that's true. I'm not even going to care about Sac State at the end of this, but Luke Wood, the president at Sacramento State, who I have no problem with dudes being ambitious, but part of why I had antipathy for Luke Wood right away is sometimes when people are as loud as he is, immediately I assume there is no plan. The plan is just to be loud. That's it. And what has Luke Wood brought Sacramento State so far? Their stadium design at Cal Expo looks like Portland State garbage-ish. Here's to hoping they downgrade to just improving what they have right now for the players. They're out of the Big Sky, so I don't care. But legitimately, like, that's their current stadium plan is Cal Expo, which is Portland State-esque. They've got 4 games on their FCS independent schedule. No coach, probably going to lose a bunch of guys to bail out. Next season is already, even if they fill out their schedule, there's going to be a mass exodus transfer portal-wise. So, this is the downside of shooting for the stars without an actual plan in place other than being loud, because Sac State didn't get bailed out with an invite to the FBS. They now are in FCS no man's land, independent with it's just going to be a complete dumpster fire, 5-alarm fire in like 2 days when all the guys bail. So Martin, RIP Sacramento State. We're done. I'm done giving a shit about them from now on. Honestly, like, I almost feel pity for them at this point. So Nick Weber said in the patreon.com / Tubs of the Club, #OnlyTubs Discord, join for less than a cup of coffee a month. Looks like Sac State's going to be playing Lincoln quite a lot next season. Crew had already there too in the comment section. Lincoln, home and home. Captain 58, all that NIL money will keep guys around. Sarcasm. Sac with a silent K from Nick Weber will host Lincoln every other week next season. Martin, you want to get in on Sac State?
I mean, I want to watch this dumpster fire. It's going to be interesting.
I'm curious how this is going to trickle down into other sports next year, because they do have a lot of NIL money in their other sports, but football, a lot of people tie a lot of emotional capital and financial capital to football. I am really curious one, I'm both not curious and very curious. When I say not curious, I'm not going to pay attention to Sac State after this. But if all that NIL money stays with Sac State, there's no way like they collected it day one. I wouldn't be shocked if there's some people who decide to pull out and Sac State had a really sexy year and then Mike Bibby's gone, Shaq's done, the money dries up, and they are in a way worse place than they started 12 months ago. Thanks for coming to the show, guys. Still decent amount of live viewers, even though we're out of football season. We'll be back next week or like whenever we have OC coaching update to talk about. And then, of course, we still got to talk about the other sports ongoing plus transfers. Always great to have everyone in the live show, but all our viewers, thank you too. Until next time. Oh, y'all want to know where Dallas is? Nickelback, obviously. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.